Good day everyone, my name is Jonathan and today I'm going to show you how I base my trees uh, for not too much money. These are my trees for my Blood and Plunder table. Uh, Today I'm going to show you with a generic tree because I don't have any more palm trees left over. They're all being used. So you're going to need a base plate, some water, PVA glue, tacky glue, super glue, this foliage that I found at the dollar store, some paint, sand, and some sawdust to make the turf. So first, we're gonna make the turf because it takes a long time to dry. So I put water in a container, and I'm gonna be mixing in the color that I wish my turf is gonna be. So you can put it in red, you can put it in yellow, whatever color you want. So I'm gonna be putting in green and a little bit of yellow to brighten my green a little. Now all you need to do is blend your mixture together, and it doesn't really matter if there's some yellow or green like not blended because it makes a nice look if like all your turf is not exactly the same color. So I'm gonna dump into a lot of sawdust in there. It's better to slowly or gradually put sawdust in there because if you put too much and you don't have enough mixture of paint and water um, to color your old sawdust, you're gonna need to restart the process. Or you can add water, but there's so much you can do with adding water because you're gonna thin out your paint. So here I'm just mixing my sawdust in the paint and water mixture, making sure that all of the pieces of the sawdust are colored. I'm breaking all the crumbs or clumps, but you're gonna see in there's like some pieces of wood that are not actual sawdust. So it doesn't matter if these are not colored because you're just in the end gonna strain this into small turf. So just go by feeling. If you can feel that it's still wet, you can always add more sawdust. Just go gradually so you don't put too much. So here I'm noticing that it's still kind of wet, so I'm putting in more sawdust. And you're gonna thank yourself for putting more sawdust at the end because it's gonna take a lot less time to dry. Like the first time I've done this, I think it took me like 30 hours to dry because it was too wet. But if you do it right and it's like dryish enough, it's only gonna take like 8 to 12 hours to dry. So once all of it is blended, just put it on a flat surface for it to dry. Just spread it out on your sheet. You can also use like a baking sheet and then put it in the oven, and that way it's gonna dry a lot faster. Now I've glued my tree already to the base plate. I've used hot glue because I'm not patient enough to wait for super glue to hold. And now I'm going to start basing the base plate. So I'm putting in some PVA glue. And oh, that's probably a little bit too much. I'm going to have to remove a bit of it. So let's put it on another base plate there. These are just rafts from my 3D printer. You can use MDF or you can also use cardboard, but if you use cardboard, make sure you paint the bottom of it so it doesn't warp. So just spread the glue all over the base plate, just not on the side, just like on top of it. And it doesn't matter if it looks like there's too much glue. It's actually better that way because the sand will absorb a lot of it. So now make sure the whole base is covered and don't cover it with a thin layer because, as I said, it's gonna absorb it. So put a thick coat of sand on top of it, and then you wait for about 12 hours. So after the long wait, you can basically remove the excess sand. Just tap it a little, then put your tree aside. Let me just put the sand away. Here we go. All right. So back to the tree. So what I'm going to be using to base coat this, I'm going to be using a brown, but I'm going to mix half and half PVA glue and the brown so that it's going to seal the sand in place. And I will also add more sand on top of it to make sure that every part of the base coat of the base plate is coated with sand. So I'm being generous with this mixture because I really need like the whole base plate to be coated, and also I'm gonna need it to hold more sand. So because I'm gonna be putting more sand on top of this. So once you've completed the top, make sure that also the side of your base plate is painted brown because you don't want that wood or cardboard or like my purple to show once it's laid on the table. So just go around the base plate, make sure there's no weird colors. Once this is done, I'm going to be putting more sand on top of it. And again, put thick coat. Doesn't matter. Like if it's the stuff that's not going to be glued is just going to be like dusted off in the end. Here we go. Now this is going to be a lot less time consuming because we're going to just wait about 4 hours due to the paint. So here it is after it's dried. So you can see that there's not much sand that is stick to it, but there's still like quite a bit. So what I'm going to be doing with this, I'm going to be mixing some yellow and brown to make a beige. And I'm sorry for my camera, it's just a phone. So beside the other thing I was pointing is the other mixture that I'm going to do is brown and off-white. Off-white is just more beige than white, but it still looks white to when you look from far. So I'm going to base coat again the whole base plate with this color. And don't worry if the dark brown is still showing through. It's just going to add more depth to your base plate. So once this first layer is done, we're just going to wait for it to dry because the next part is going to be to dry brush with lighter colors. So acrylic paint doesn't take that long to dry, maybe 10-15 minutes. So now I'm going to be mixing my, like I said, off-white and brown, so that it makes a really light beige, more like sandy color. And I'm going to be dry brushing this, so I'm going to remove like all the excess from my paintbrush, and then just go real quick all over the base plate. This is like the first layer of dry brush, so I'm being generous with it because since it's what I was doing is palm trees, I wanted it to be more bright than dark. So once this is done, this dry brushing should take only like 3 or 4 minutes to dry. But like this time I waited only maybe like 2 minutes. So this time I'm just using the off-white, not mixed with anything, and I'm just going over the base plate again. And here I've put a little bit too much, but that doesn't matter. Like I don't mind because I'm going to be putting turf over there. So you can always cover up your mistakes with like some foliage or stuff like that. So now that I've done the dry brushing, I'm going to set it aside and let it dry for a little bit. Meanwhile, I'm going to be cutting some of my foliage from the dollar store. Sorry I didn't move my camera for this, and I wasn't in the right angle to show you what I'm doing, but what I'm doing is basically just cutting the base of these foliage plastic things. And after, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be inspecting each pieces, because since that's like dollar store material, there might be a lot of flash on the plastic. So I'm looking for like nice ones, like this one, for example. It was really hard on these to find an example for like a bad looking one, and you may not be able to see it, but there's like the centerpiece is wider than it doesn't look like it doesn't look natural at all. But that was the only piece, which is surprising. So now what I'm going to be using is my tacky glue. This is not super glue and not PVA, so it's not really kid friendly. So just put small dot, and what I like about this glue is it holds right away. It's not dry, but it still holds. So I'm just putting in like 1, 2, maybe 3 pieces. So I'm gonna put 2 on this one because I think it looks nice that way. Then I'm gonna use some green crumb that I found on Amazon. This was maybe $5 for a big bag. And I'm gonna make a little bush beside the tree. You can put that bush anywhere on that base plate. Now this is the turf we made, the sawdust. So I'm straining it and making sure that all the big pieces are not like gonna be on my tree base. So as you can see, all I'm left with is basically dust, green dust. So I'm using super glue because it's really watery, I guess. It's really liquid, and I'm spreading it around with just plastic pieces like that. What I like about super glue is that when you put the turf on it, it automatically bonds. It doesn't take like 10 minutes or anything. You put it on and it's done. So I'm just going to sprinkle that green over. Shake it off. And as you can see, it's already like glued there, done. I wouldn't put my finger on it yet. It's just that it's holding the turf like right away. And you can always add more. My little tiny bottle was empty, so. And that's basically it. Tree basing. Thanks for watching.